What's up everyone, FC here, and it's Opinion Wednesday, and I want to talk about Access. I used to be not a fan of Access, to put it mildly, and let me explain why. And I'm going to tell you why I've turned around over the years. 5 reasons that have really turned me on to this technology. Some of you guys might be holdouts as well, and you might discover a few things about Access these days that are kind of mind-blowing, and I'll give you a few tips on how to live with this system. So why, you might ask, didn't I like Access back when it was introduced in 2021? I didn't see a lot of benefit, aside from installation, and I thought it was a way for manufacturers to charge us more money on bikes. So here's Access right here, and it show you how it works. So it's just shifting is very fast shifting, and but it didn't offer a lot from my Shimano SLX. Kind of shifted the same, just a little faster. And when e-bikes were introduced, I think it would just crunch gears. It was just too fast for the gearing systems. It wasn't robust enough. Also, this thing was kind of flexy, kind of chintzy for all that motorized shifting, for all that speed. It wasn't quite there. The shifter didn't have that feel, that lever. Sometimes you have to ease in to the shift, or sometimes you had to overshift, to get in if your shifting was not quite perfect, or with the old flexi systems of the time. And then the other thing was the shifter itself. It was kind of wonky. It had like a tube. You put your thumb in and you go like this. You kind of rock it back and forth. It was kind of weird. And then the last reason was the battery. Here was the battery, and boom, now you have a battery. You have a battery here, you have a battery there. But this battery to me was a problem. It would always die. It was like, what the heck's going on? And it's like, oh, you got to charge your battery. I'm like, why? What is the upside of having this inconvenience of checking it and charging it? Well, it wasn't easy to check as well. You could press the button, but all it told you was whether it was 20% lower. It didn't really give you a level. You needed an app to do that. So the battery would be constantly in monitor mode, because it had to turn itself on. This system, it always had to have a motion sensor. So you leave it for 4 months, 6 months, it would die, even though you didn't use it. The other thing is, once you move the bike, it would turn the whole system on. So it use even more battery. So whenever you went for a drive, you drive to Tahoe, you drive to Moab, you get there, want to ride, thing's dead. So you had to constantly manage and charge it. Okay, so that was the premise. That was before. What turned me around from this system, from being not quite convinced, so now I'm pretty darn convinced? Well, here is the new system. It's called Access T-Type Transmission. Boom, look at this guy right here, right? It's so much more robust. It is stiff, it is ready for the shift, and it is anchored to the strongest part of your bike, which is the rear axle. And people fear that, hey, it's going to destroy your axle, it's going to destroy your frame. No, it doesn't do that. It's just a nice solid piece where it needs to be. Now the long cage can break, but that's all. Everything's rebuildable. So pretty cool. And let me show it to you. It is ever ready. Right now I'm multi-shifting it, and so it is so stiff that it's ready to handle what torque is needed to do it. And notice when I did it, I did a multi-shift. I pressed it once, and it wasn't that fast. So that is the second beautiful thing about this T-type transmission, is now that it had electronics and it had the speed, it managed the speed. It slowed it down. It slowed it down so that it was in sync with the shifting ramps of the system. And that made all the difference in the world to me, because now you had a shifting system timing that was superior to the old Access. It was superior to the old SRAM transmissions. It was even better than the Shimano XT and XTR. It was that good. You could shift under power, and even on e-bike, a little bit of power, mid power. But on a cross-country bike like this, you can shift anytime you want. And in racing, that's an advantage. You have speed shifting is not an advantage. What's an advantage is that when you make a shift under power or whenever, that it is reliable. You know, that you don't have to do so many things to get that done. So the other advantage is the rocker paddle or the shifter has now been improved. It has been redesigned 4 times. So I'm not, you know, talking out of my mind when I say the first one was not good. You know, why was it being redesigned? Every single year this system was being revamped. And now this is the 3rd generation. The 4th generation is super cool. It is now very intuitive. This one is just 2 big paddles on a kind of a flat surface. The next one is kind of beveled. You just check. So super cool. Now we have a system. You can also, they're all backwards compatible. So if you love the old ones, you can still use them. But the shifters are now a whole lot better. Next reason is now, especially on e-bikes, they are integrating. So you know this battery? So this battery is kind of a pain. I was complaining that they were dying. Now, instead of this battery, they just have a stub that wires this into the main battery of your e-bike. And that is a godsend. Godsend because you never run out of battery. Even when your motor battery is dead, not enough to power the motor, is still enough to power this for hundreds of shifts. You also have these chargers now. So I charge all my batteries in batch. So you have all these solutions that are evolving, and because it's connected to now the main motor battery, it knows when to turn itself on. When is it on? You know, when you turn on the system. You know, you can't shift when the system is off, but you know, that's a small price to pay. You don't really need the motor on. The system just needs to be on. The next reason is they've put this system down market. You know what I said when they're trying to charge us more money? That is still true. This rear derailleur, very expensive. But now this has trickled down to, this is XX to XO and to GX. It's now down market, it's now affordable. And let me tell you, on e-bikes, a few grams here and there, it doesn't matter. What you need is better steel, more robust. In fact, they even put this system down to cable. There's something called Transmission 90 and Transmission 70, and those are transmission type systems, not quite access, but they are compatible. They are upgrade compatible, downward compatible. So really cool systems on a strong, deliberate shifting systems with a stronger chain, they're all axle mounted. So a lot of options now on that ecosystem. The final reason why AXS and T-type transmission has really grown on me is because it opens up the future. You know, little did we know this thing was kind of a shot in the dark into the future, a shot forward into the future that opens up a lot of possibilities. What are the possibilities? Now we have a suspension that has a brain. The suspension has motion sensors, it has shifting sensors, it has a power meter sensor. So with all that data, it is able to make more information on what to do with the suspension, and that is really cool. You know, in cross country, it's being used on e-bikes, but I think the real benefit is cross country and trail, where speed, you know, is an unfair advantage. When your suspension is making decisions, locking, unlocking, going on firm, you know, 500 times per race, you don't need that remote lockout anymore. And all of that is made possible by AXS. AXS is the central computer to all these sensors. So everything is controlled by an app. It's all configurable, but it also has AI. You can default it on its own, and it's going to make decisions. Meaning, when you put 300 watts of power on this thing, it's going to lock out that suspension because it knows you are not in the rough stuff. It knows what you want. It knows you want power. If you're on the 12th gear, you know, it has more data on what to do with the suspension. And then with e-bikes, now you have, with that DJI motor, you have automatic shifting and coast shifting. And the more interesting part is that coast shifting, because now they're feeding off the main battery. Now the e-bike can control the shifter. And what does that do? Let's say you crest a hill, you're in your lowest gear, and you go to 20 miles an hour, and the system says, hey, you don't want to be in your lowest gear, because when you pick up that pedal, you know, you're going to be all out of whack, and you have to shift like 10 times. So it shifts by itself, it'll spin the motor and shift it itself. It's called coast shifting. So you're always in the right gear, when you are coasting. And it's all configurable. If you don't want it, you don't need to have it. You can also have automatic shifting. Now it knows all this information. Now it knows to put you in a particular gear, and you don't even have to shift gears. Not really appropriate for high-end mountain biking, but hey, let's say you're commuting, you're kind of a beginner, you're just screwing up your gears. Let the system do it for you, and that's all possible because of AXS. So there you go. It's kind of a new frontier, right? Some of you guys I know were convinced from day one that AXS was a beautiful thing. Not me, and some of you are still holdouts. They still hate it. But now you can see, what the kind of the advantages are of a system like this. And let me just say that if you are concerned about the battery situation, and you have what I'm going to say is the easiest solution, instead of you checking every week or before every ride if your battery is okay, is just have a charger and have an extra battery. Always have a fully charged battery in your pack, and you'll never run out. You just put it in, and then still do your management once a month or whatever. But if you run out or your buddy runs out, it goes here. Let's swap batteries. You're good to go now. So that's my editorial for you guys today. My journey with AXS. First it was just a cross country benefit with a lot of compromises, but now with transmission, cabled, not cabled, and all these options, smart systems powered by your e-bike, configurable, and now we have apps that we're used to having apps to work with our bicycles. Then it's kind of grown on me. Let me know what your experience is with AXS and wireless transmission, and if that even Shimano has joined the fray on wireless. So let me know. Thanks a ton, guys.